What's going on, guys? My name is Christopher and welcome to It's Complicated, the show where I talk about and showcase wristwatches. So if you love watches like I do, you're going to want to smash that subscribe button, click on the bell, and you'll be all set. Today, I'm going to be comparing a vintage Rolex Submariner to a more modern Rolex Submariner. Here we go. All right, guys, here we are. Today we are comparing my Rolex Submariner 16610 to a vintage Rolex Submariner 5513. Before we get started, the vintage 5513 here was provided to me by watchchest.com. A couple of pretty cool guys over there. Make sure to check them out. I'll put a link in the description below. Really the first thing I noticed is how light the vintage Submariner is compared to the more modern one. Mind you, the more modern one is from 2008 and doesn't have solid center links like the 16610s. But let's put them on the scale and I'll show you what I mean. All right, here's the vintage Rolex Submariner. And it weighs a little over 90 grams. Now, let's check out the more modern Submariner. See what it weighs, and it weighs 134 grams, so pretty big difference there. Let's check out the bezels. Both have aluminum bezel inserts, but the vintage Rolex Submariner 5513, while the bezel does turn on the vintage Rolex Submariner, it does not click and it does turn both ways, where the 16610 has a unidirectional bezel, meaning it only turns one way. And of course, it has 120 clicks around. Let's check out the crystals. The vintage Rolex Submariner has an acrylic or plastic crystal on it, and the more modern 16610 has a sapphire crystal on it, which is extremely scratch resistant. Both watches have a screw down crown, which helps keep them water resistant, but the 16610 is more water resistant by another 100 meters. Now the dial on the 16610 is a glossy black dial with raised indices surrounded by white gold, where the 5513 has a matte black dial with flat indices. Those are not raised, as you can see, compared to the 16610. The 5513 here is using tritium for the lume, and the 16610 is using luminova for the lume. Now, this 5513 has a meters first dial, meaning it shows you the meters first on the dial there, where the more modern Rolex shows you the feet first. So that's interesting. Another interesting thing is the 16610 is a certified chronometer, where the 5513 is not a certified chronometer. 5513 has a holes case, no holes case on the 16610. The movement inside the 16610 is a 3135 Rolex movement, and it beats about 9,000 beats more an hour than the movement in the 5513. Check out the case back on the vintage watch. Very cool. It's a little different than the case back on the more modern Submariner, but you can use the same tool to take both case backs off. Very cool. The more modern Rolex Submariner is using 904L steel for the case and its bracelet, where the vintage 5513 is using 316 steel. Let's check out the bracelets. On the vintage Submariner, the bracelets are just using folded metal, as you can see on the back there, held together by those rivets on the side. The end links just kind of flopping around, very loose. This side not as loose, so maybe this could be adjusted, tightened down a little bit. But check out the more modern Submariner. The links are just much nicer. They're solid pieces of steel, except these center links on this one are not solid. You can see there, you can kind of see through it. And the end links are solid end links. The more modern Submariner has this nice fold over clasp here, keeps you extra protected, and the vintage one just has a clicking clasp. So what am I saying here? The 16610 keeps better time has a better bracelet, crystal clasp, bezel, looms, indices, and is more water resistant. But you know something? The 5513 is worth more money. Lots of these watches were made back in the late 60s, but not a lot of them are around anymore, and many collectors have picked them right up. And that is the comparison, guys. It's pretty obvious that the more modern Rolex watches are built way, way better than the vintage ones. Now, that doesn't mean the vintage ones aren't cool. A lot of people prefer the vintage Rolex Submariners to the more modern Rolex Submariners. But it's pretty clear that the more modern Submariners are built much better than the vintage ones. And that wraps up another episode of It's Complicated. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, like this video, share it with all your friends, and I'll see you next time on another episode of It's Complicated.